Today, I will share with you something that not only helped me finish races, but finish near the front. And that something is the Vortex of Danger. I'm sure you've heard it before, but what it taught me was not just where not to put the car, but a way of thinking that propelled me to the front. I'm an instructor in real life and in sims. I've won races in both. I'm also a physicist who uses science to help drivers like you win. For those who don't know, the Vortex of Danger is coined by multi-SCCA world champion and two-time 24-hour of Daytona winner, Randy Pobst. With over 90 pro wins, the guy kinda knows what he's talking about when it comes to winning races. So what is it? Basically, it describes an area that is very inviting to the attacker, but an area that the defender cannot see and cannot avoid. If the attacker goes for the move, which is almost always too late, it will very likely end in an incident with one or both cars out of the race. In the entry, the Vortex describes the area between the leading car and the inside edge of the track, from the turn-in all the way to the apex. And in the exit, the Vortex describes the area that is between the lead car and the outer edge of the track, from the apex all the way to the track out. In both cases, if you're not already alongside, the lead driver will not see you. They will already have turned their vision to where they need to go, and you will be in their blind spot. For the lead car, this is dangerous because you will have no idea that an obstacle is preventing you from taking the racing line, because it's in your blind spot. For the trailing car, Randy puts it best. It's too late to pass. The hole you see is closing rapidly. You're in a blind spot, there will likely be contact, and it will be your fault. Do not make your decision based on the gap you see. Make decisions based on how much gap will be left when you get there. In any regulation I'm aware of, the passing car is responsible for making a safe pass. There's one thing that must happen in order to perform a successful and safe pass. Many newer drivers fail to recognize this. They think that if there's a gap, they're entitled to go for it. The one thing that an attacker must do is to make their car seen. They must make sure the driver they are attacking can see them. So in practice, if you're the attacker, it's your responsibility to make sure you're seen by the car in front. If you've been to a real-life track day, this is the core reason for point by passing. If the car in front points you by, it's a clear indication that they see you and they intend to give you space for the pass. If you have two takeaways from this video, this is the first one. As an attacker, you need to make yourself seen before turn-in and maybe even before the brake zone, because after that, the driver ahead is not looking in their mirrors, nor looking to the side. So what do you do if you don't think they can see you? Don't pass. If you're crossing a road but you don't think traffic can see you, do you still cross? And by the way, the answer is no. The second important takeaway is this. Don't put your car in a position where the outcome of the corner or the outcome of your race is entirely decided by the other driver. If you see control of your race's outcome to take a gamble, the rewards better be worth it. And if the dice don't roll your way, don't go crying about it after. If you don't get it, this is what I'm trying to say. When you enter the Vortex of Danger, or even dive bomb, you are committed. If the lead driver is half competent, you will both be entering the corner near the limit. Because of your higher speed, you will not have any room to adjust your line. All you can do is stay on the inside as much as possible. Meanwhile, you will only make it through the corner safely and survive if the lead driver, first, sees you and somehow knows you're in his blind spot. Second, have the courtesy or conservatism to decide to give you racing room. And third, have enough time, skill, and capability in his car to change racing lines to avoid you. That's a lot of ifs, none of which you have control over, and any of which can end your race. Often people argue that the door was open or there was a gap, but don't realize that by the time they get there, there is no door. A lot of this is of course my opinion, and if you speak with anyone else, they'll tell you something different. But notice how who owns the corner and who's in the right and wrong isn't at all relevant here. That's because as much as people like to argue about who's right and who's wrong and whose corner it was, it doesn't matter. The fact that two drivers need to argue over right and wrong means that they already made contact and one or both drivers are in the grass or in the wall. Even if you're the driver in the right, your race is probably over. Now, I'm not saying you should always back out of situations like these, even when you're on the inside. What I'm saying is, if you put your car in the vortex, understand that you are giving up control of the situation. You are basically rolling dice. And there's nothing wrong with rolling dice if you like to gamble. Then when shouldn't you back out? When should you commit to the move? Remember earlier when I said, if you make a risky move, whatever the move is, it better be worth it. We've talked about what you're risking, but you should also understand what you can be gaining. If you're racing your rival for the championship win in the last race of the season, in the last lap, with 2 corners to go, with no one else to catch you, and you see a gap, then by all means, send it. I'm not saying do something malicious, but if you need to make a high-risk, super aggressive move for the glory, it might be worth it. Meanwhile, if it's 20 minutes into a 6-hour race, and you're coming up on a back marker with no one behind you, what is there to gain by making a high-risk, low-probability pass? Absolutely nothing. Again, what matters here is risk-reward. Right and wrong doesn't matter most of the time. It will matter when, say, if you made a risky move and you were found to be at fault, and that leads to a penalty which will likely cost you your race or even points position. Then you may want to keep that aggression in check. What if you're the car ahead? What can you do to reduce your risk? Here are 3 tips you can use to keep yourself safe. Tip 1, going back to our first key takeaway, be spatially aware. Keep an eye on the cars that are gaining on you down the straight and be ready for any last-second moves. If there was a car in your mirror and now it's not there, the car's right next to you. Also, practice how to respond to these kinds of moves, such as delaying your turn-in to set up for the switchback. Tip 2, you can also reduce the size of the vortex. As the leading car, you decide where and how big the vortex is. The closer you are to the inside, the smaller the vortex is. If the trailing car can't fit into the vortex, then there's no chance they can hit you in the vortex. So yes, I'm saying defend that corner, especially since the inside vortex is a lot more dangerous than the outside vortex. And that's because the attacking car can reduce speed on the exit to avoid an incident, but they can't do that on the entry. Tip 3, know the driver. If there's an aggressive driver behind you, take note and drive more defensively. If he's a lot faster, and especially if you're not racing for precision, it may help you to let the driver pass. The easiest would be to let off the throttle a bit on the straight. If the driver behind is a clean driver that you trust, you can take more liberties with how you take the corner. But if you don't know who that driver is, it's better to be overcautious. If you misplace your trust in the attacking driver, this will be your mistake and you'll have to own it. And that's it. That's my opinion on the vortex and why in most cases you want to avoid being in it. It's a topic not without controversy, so I'd love to hear what you think. Share it in the comments, let me know what I'm missing or what I'm getting right. Also, don't miss my other videos, including my upcoming video on how to follow another car closely. As always, feel free to reach out to me with any questions on vehicle dynamics, driving technique, car setup, racecraft, or strategy. You can find me on my Discord server by visiting www.lasttenth.racing from your browser. In the meantime, keep sending it, but stay out of the vortex, and I'll see you next time.